fearful New Yorkers. They need easy access to mace. Should be guns. We're not doing guns. We're not even doing mace. You can't get mace shipped to your residence in New York City. It's a no-go. It's against state law. You got a New Jersey, you're good. New York, no go. That's nutty. Especially when you got, 60% increase in crime in New York City? Those numbers are not good. It's what we're talking about today. Easy access to mace in a city, in a state that needs it. All right, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies. I read the news. It's what we're doing. All right, let's jump on in. And in early December, it's an article from a young lady who had an experience, and that's where this article kind of pivots off of. In early December, I came face to face with a predator on the streets of New York. You just hear all kinds of stories coming out of New York right now. And the pepper spray hanging from my bedazzled pink keychain turned out to be my saving grace. This young lady is an author, and she is about 21 years old, as I remember. Around 5 p.m. on a Wednesday, I was walking home from the gym on a busy street near Union Square when a man lewdly catcalled me. I ignored it, kept my head down, and picked up the pace. But no matter how fast I booked it, his voice kept getting closer. His sexual comments turned violent as he pursued me for 4 blocks. I would have been, you had somebody chasing you? Not good. I desperately searched for cops, but I didn't see a single officer. That's when I made the decision to run into a crowded pharmacy, hoping to lose him and find safety in numbers. What a helpless feeling. That's terrible. And yet it happens every single day, doesn't it? But the man followed me inside. He blocked the only exit and spewed derogatory names at me while yelling, "You know I could R-word you." To my shock, the 24 or so people in the pharmacy, patrons, employees, and even a uniformed security guard, they all averted their eyes. You know that when something's going on and you're just like, oh, geez, I'm just going to let them deal with it. I don't want to get involved. What's going on there? Don't really know. Even if it's like super clear what's going on, your natural instinct is to not get involved, right? Because you don't know if one person is just crazy. You don't know if both people are crazy. And if guys saying something weird, you just don't know. But when it's a young lady, you got somebody who obviously is not quite all there if you're chasing people into stores that are heavily populated. As he began to approach me, I remember the mace in my pocket. I clicked open the canister and he hesitated, giving me a split second to dash for the door. Riding a rush of adrenaline, I ran all the way home, locked my apartment door behind me, and broke down crying. That's horrible. If I hadn't had the threat of mace, I have no idea how that encounter would have ended. But I know for sure that my pepper spray got me out of a dangerous situation. Now, I never leave the house without it. As a young woman facing down a crime wave in New York City, pepper spray is the only method of self-defense at my disposal. Seems like pepper spray is available everywhere, but mace, not necessarily so. Pepper spray, it's bad. Mace, not good. Don't want to get hit with either, but pepper spray, all right. Mace, that'll put you down. Here's one of the captions of a photo. Subway violence has now become an almost daily occurrence in New York City, which is home to 1.5 million single women and over 1 million elderly residents. What it's implying is that all those folks are vulnerable, which they are. This story kind of indicates, all right, you're walking home and you got some nut job who's, threatening your safety. But a ludicrous law stands in the way of New Yorkers getting access to the most basic form of self-defense. While anyone can order mace online via Amazon, a state law prohibits the product from being shipped to New York addresses. Who came up with that law and why? Mind-blowing. But there's probably some partially reasonable explanation way back when. It's just been carried forward. For me, Mace, any of those things that aren't necessarily, if it's not shooting a bullet, I say, hey, let people have it. And even if it is shooting a bullet, I say, hey, let people have it. One of my thoughts is on all these robberies of all these stores, these armed robberies going in, maybe we should have like a purge month. You know that movie, The Purge, where just all kinds of craziness goes on for a 24-hour period. Maybe we just arm all of the shop owners, all of the business owners that are being continually robbed, arm them all, give them a month. And if somebody comes into their store, whatever happens, happens. How do you think that would take care of some of the crime we've got going on? I think it would. Some might argue that that's not a humane way to solve the issue. I would argue that it's rather self-fulfilling. If you've got people committing crimes and they knowingly and willingly still want to rob an entity, a store, a restaurant, a weed store, a bank, whatever, and they don't come out of it, we warned you, the purge. There are only a handful of in-person locations that sell pepper spray in the city, many of which have shuttered since the pandemic. Online message boards are flooded with desperate New Yorkers trading notes on where to find it. When I first saw this article, I thought, it can't be that bad. If you've literally got online notes of, okay, here you can get the good stuff. You can get the pepper spray here. I know. I don't tell anybody. Only tell people in secret. This is where you get it. It's the good stuff. It's not that other crappy pepper spray. So you find it in like a Reddit thread, which points out that you can buy an axe at Target, but not pepper spray. How does that make any sense whatsoever? You can't really walk around with an axe. And can you imagine going to the gym? All right, where do I check my axe in? Who's going to take my axe? It's not reasonable, right? So you take that little pepper spray. I guess make it a big one. If you got some guy who's just chasing you around, not good. Probably saw her come out of the gym literally and is like, all right, I'm going to follow her. And yet, despite a mounting need for self-defense, the law stands. Overall crime is up 60% since last year. And the city has been rocked by a slew of hate crimes, subway shovings, and heinous murders in recent months. We've seen that here in Seattle too. The criminals have become just super brazen. They're just doing their own thing. I'm surprised we don't have more issues with people either shooting criminals or, macing them. We don't hear about this more. I think most people believe it's not going to happen to them. So they don't they're not really aware of what's going on. Because if you're going to get thrown down, subway stairs, that's not exactly top of your thought list of things to check for. You know that safety is an issue, but on a day-to-day basis, when you're just doing your thing, it's not what you think of, right? Because if you did, you'd just be too freaked out to go anywhere and do anything. Meanwhile, New Yorkers desperate to defend themselves are being forced to jump through hoops to buy mace. In April, a group handing out pepper spray to women and the elderly in Chinatown attracted a line spanning blocks along Mulberry Street. A total of 550 canisters were snapped up in just 30 minutes. When the barista at my local coffee shop asked me where I got my Mace keychain, she was disappointed to hear it required a Jersey zip code. You got to be in another state. That's nuts. New York. I've even become a de facto distributor myself. Multiple New York City friends concerned for their safety have asked if they can ship their pepper spray to my family's address in New Jersey so I can direct deliver it to them. Yeah, I'm laughing because it's so ridiculous. It's like, it's Mace. You're going to use that to defend yourself. You're not going to go out there and are you going to rob a bank with Mace? I don't think so. You do that with a stolen gun. In the criminal's handbook, that's what it usually says, right? Steal said handgun, steal vehicle, then go on crime spree. That's how this is done, right? It's 2022. You got to read the guidebook. The bottom line, the ban on shipping pepper spray is ludicrous. I would have to agree with that. Because if you're going to go out there and if you're going to commit crimes with Mace, that's on you. You're just a moron and somebody should probably take you down. But for most folks, I would say 99.9 whatever percent, they're carrying it around because they're fearful for their own safety and they're going to use it for their own defense, not an offensive maneuver. So why isn't it available in New York? Yeah, wild, right? The ban on shipping pepper spray is ludicrous. Vulnerable New Yorkers shouldn't be waiting on lines, contacting out-of-state friends, or scouring Reddit threads to find it. And with more than 1.5, and we already talked about that, there's no place where easy access to basic, non-lethal self-defense is more necessary. After saying there's basically 2.5 million vulnerable, either single women or the elderly. So you've got a huge population that these criminals are honing in on. And folks are just saying, hey, let me have my mace. And instead, this is what's going on. So you might think whatever state you're in, as long as you're not in New York, you are probably just way, way safer. There are times where I've checked in with young ladies in my life, girlfriends of my kids or whatever, people that work for me, whatever. I'm like, hey, you're going there. Do you have mace? I mean, you're going downtown. You're going to be there for an event. Do you have mace? Do you have anything? Do you have one of those sharp eye poker devices? I mean, do what you got to do, right? I mean, if something bad happens, you got to defend yourself. So mace, whatever it is, gun, I mean, that's becoming a very reality. And I know a lot of folks are, oh, you need to get a gun. Well, probably. But then you've always got that thing of, oh, what if somebody uses it on me? What if I shoot myself in the foot? You know, all those things. What if, you know, I had somebody yesterday, had a discussion with somebody here at work, and somebody they knew, their mother who's having mental problems, got a hold of their kid's gun and used it on themselves. And that's where you're like, oh, that's horrible, horrible. If you knew that your parent took themselves out with a gun, I mean, just so brutal. So there's that. Whereas mace, all right, yeah, you blinded yourself. So now that we finally have a pragmatic, tough on crime mayor in office, it's time this law changes. I call on Governor 𝐏𝐞𝐨𝐬𝐥𝐿 and Mayor Eric Adams to help overturn this prohibition, to stop penalizing vulnerable New Yorkers, and to return our fundamental freedom to protect ourselves. On behalf of yourself or your vulnerable person you know, contact the governor's office. Make this happen. I would have to say I'm a solid 2 thumbs up go on New Yorkers being able to have access to defensive mace and pepper spray. Anything else they need to arm themselves, I would say, hey, yeah. If there's, I mean, this law on the books, that's ridiculous. When did that come about? Somebody let me know in the comments. If you live in New York or you know the history on that, how or why is it, especially in that state? It's, you know, with basically all that crime is centered around in New York City, right? And so some of the boroughs, and it's changed over time. You know, it used to be up north. Now it's changed. Yeah, all that stuff changes. But there's a definite need in the state of New York for mace. So, yeah, wild story that folks who probably need it the absolute most don't have access to it. Why isn't this more of a thing? I don't know. It's just wild. It's probably because, you know, once something becomes the law and people are like, oh, we've lived this long without it, don't really need it. Plus, you can just go over to Jersey and get it. I mean, what a pain in the rear. Hey, can I ship some of the good stuff to your parents' house in Jersey? I mean, that's literally the conversation it sounds like they're having. And I did check in with a couple of people that live in that area, and it seems like this is a thing. I mean, it's a real deal. No, you can't get it. Yeah, there's not a law in the books for possession of it. It's not readily available. If you've got an address, you can't get it shipped there. You can't buy it in a store. It's just wild that in New York City, this is what they're doing, but you can hand it out on the streets apparently. And that seems to be okay because no cop in their right mind. Oh, you got some mace? I'm going to have to take you down. All right. Let me read you your rights. That's just not going to happen, right? So somebody out there need to tell me what's the deal with no mace or whatever it is in New York City, in the state of New York. Yeah. Wild, right? Okay. That's it for me on this one. I will keep you updated if perchance this situation changes. All right. We'll catch up soon. Thanks for being here. We'll talk again. Bye for now.